Hi, I'm Dr. Gemma, and welcome back to Cognitive, the Knitting Psychology podcast. Cheerfully and somewhat irregularly in business since 2008. Segments today may include what's on my hooks, needles, and spindles, a strategy, something I really like, put a lid on it, oh shoot, and blather. So sit back, put your feet up, pick up your knitting, crocheting, spinning, weaving, or dyeing, or any other yarny thing you're doing, and get ready to enjoy. Well, hello there, it's Dr. Gemma, and welcome back to Cognitive. This is episode 128. Wow! I was listening to episode, I think it was 102, called Minerva Spin. I have to tell you, now I know why you guys are using me to go to sleep at night. I didn't even hear half of it. I was kind of bored. Horrifying but true, the tradition continues. So here we are. It is Monday, May 1st at about 4 p.m. It cooled down today, so it's only in the 50s, and it's very windy, and it's kind of nice. So let's get this one rolling along, shall we? Your comments are very welcome. Please remember you can submit them at cognitivepodcast.blogspot.com. Don't forget to put the K in cognitive. You can also submit them at our group on Ravelry. In the meantime, let's see what's going on here. Well, of course, the warm thanks. I think, first of all, Sage Pecos, I'm just sending you some love. Because, yes, our loved four-leggers linger on in our lives. And thank you to Salpal for chiming in. I do have to say, at the risk of choking myself up, blankets paid a visit this week. I was really surprised, and it was really very beautiful. I was asleep, and as I woke up, I dreamt I was petting Queenie. And she was standing in front of me with her head raised, that wonderful expression she has. And I was laughing and I was petting her head, and blankets just popped into existence. And she did something very un-blankets. With a big cheerful grin, she just elbowed Queenie right out of the way and shoved her head into my hands and looked up at me with this just blissful smile of joy. And I knew in that minute two things. One, I could feel her fur under my hands as I started to caress her head and her ears. And two, she had a smile on her face that was so big, she missed me. And she was so happy to see me. And as I was just wrapping my fingers through the thick, cushy, plushy fur around her ears and forehead, I popped awake full of happiness. So Sage Pecos, I hope that helps, because it sure helped me. They linger on with us, and I don't know, maybe they're still following us around, and every now and then we get lucky and we see them. Sustainable Living points out that you can grow moringa, the herb, but it's a bit fussy and it likes hot weather, so you have to bring it indoors. So she says, no, she's not going to do that. Frankly, me neither. Blue-haired hiker, I don't even know if Jessica is listening, but we are all cheering you on as you pass mile 100 on the Appalachian Trail, I believe somewhere in North Carolina. Wow, you should see the pictures. Oh my goodness. She's worth following on Instagram if you can get on her account. Blue-haired hiker. Oh, she was at this fire tower that has the 100-mile marker from the southern edge of the trail. Oh, you should see the views from where she is. And it made me so homesick. It looked so much like the area in northeast Pennsylvania where I grew up. So keep it going, Jessica. We're all cheering you on. Oh, okay. Let's see. I'm getting useless emails that I don't want. That's that Bing sound you probably just heard. What's on my hooks and needles? Well, I finished the I Need Me Some Stripes socks, and I'm wearing them today, in fact, because it got cooler. And the fit on them is great. And they feel just wonderful. There is nothing like a good pair of Franken socks to cheer you right up. They look terrific. I'm glancing down at them now, sticking out of my clogs. Just love them. In progress, I did not credit myself with finishing any skeins there. So the stash toss is still at 4 skeins in versus 33 out. In terms of finished objects, you may remember that I did the very quick projects for my high school's charity auction. I did a Wednesday snood and a small simple cow in the colors of my school. And yesterday I got this beautiful text that made me cry from a friend of mine from high school. She was my best friend when we were in high school. She's now in Florida with her husband. And she saw that I had made them on the charity auction. I didn't even see the charity auction, so I have no idea how much they went for. But she is the one who bought them. When she saw I had made them, she bid on them, and she is having some family issues herself right now. So she said she held off opening them until yesterday, and she opened them, and she just went crazy. She said, they're so beautiful. And of course, I put the little tags from Birch and Cider on there that say J.M. Mayfocket. And so she's got that. Of course, we did Latin class together. And she was so excited. She said, I just can't believe it. It's so you. And she said, they're so beautiful. The colors are vibrant. Okay, I don't have the nerve to tell her it was really inexpensive acrylic. And even for inexpensive acrylic, I got it on sale. So that project, boy, that just went down great from beginning to end. Really, I am very, very satisfied about that. Meanwhile, in the not finished yet stuff, the Blueberry Who socks, who I realized I should be calling the Whoberry socks, but the Blueberry Waffle socks in the TARDIS colorway from CJ Knits. I'm on the first sock, and I am now past the waist yarn for the heel and heading up the foot, which means on one side of it I am doing stockinette, and on the other side I'm doing the pattern, the Blueberry Waffle, which gives it some interest, and I'm just working on. So you can see the picture there. It looks terrific. Blueberry Waffles do. They are a great use of a monotone or a semi-solid colorway. They just come out great, as you can see there. The next pair of Franken socks, the Spring Frankies, I'm on the foot on one of them, and I'm on the last stripe before the foot on the other. I put up a picture from when I wasn't quite that far, but you can get a good idea of how they're coming out. I'm very much enjoying them. The Dizzy Woodlands Country Cotton Shawl, I'm really doing a row a day on that. That is supposed to be about 47 or 48 rows, and I think I'm at row 20. It gets kind of boring. You do 5 rows in the same pattern, and then every 6th row, you do a more tight pattern just to sort of highlight progress, I guess. But anyway, I'm on about row 20. Of course, each row gets bigger, so this one always slows down about the halfway point, which I'm not even quite at halfway. But it's a lot of fun. It is just beautiful. This is a gorgeous colorway. This is Slippery Slope is the name of the colorway, and this is from Dizzy Blonde Studios. I happen to have it in her sock weight. But this is a beautiful, beautiful colorway. I have to tell you, I wouldn't mind doing a whole sweater if she would do that in a DK, but I have so much sweater yarn right now, so that'll have to go down the pike. And then you may notice I have something called Simplicity 8605. Well, that is the skirt I'm sewing. Now, what happened there? You may remember in our last episode that I posted pictures of the flannels that I bought on sale, and that I was on the search for my half circle pattern. And I know I had it during the quarantine because I know I posted it on the Cottagecore, now defunct, group on Facebook. And so I've been looking everywhere for the pattern, and I can't find it. And I can't figure out why I can't find it. I'm really confused at this because I have a pattern box. All my other patterns are in it. But what's been coming out of that is I've been looking everywhere, but also I cleaned out a lot of my study on that search, and I began searching online for various other options, and I realized what I wanted so much from that pattern. It was the skirt was in 2 pieces, and you cut these giant quarter circles out, but you did them on the selvage edge, so when you opened it, you got 2 half circles, and you sewed their edge together. And then it had a waistband. Not just fold the waist over and seam it. It had an actual separate waistband casing, which I liked because that allowed you to adjust the waist. I don't know how to describe this. You'd have to look up the math. When you do a circle skirt, the waistband is going to be limited by the outside circumference of the circle as you cut it out of the fabric. And the small side of that is going to be your waistband. And if your waist is a little large for that, you get around that by having an add-on waistband casing that you can adjust the size there. And I don't know how to explain that any better. But as I've been doing my research this week, I realized I wasn't really going to succeed with that pattern if I found it. That my waist is probably a little bit bigger. Now, those circle skirts that I made, they all fit. So I thought I probably can find that pattern and follow it. However, as I was researching how to make a circle skirt, which is actually fairly easy, and there are patterns you can use. You don't need to buy a printed pattern. You can make your own. But as I was working on that, I began to realize that for my waist, and just roll with me on this one, don't try to understand this if you don't want to, I need a fabric that is 60 inches wide instead of the standard 42 to 45. And I realized that was why I made them in flannel. Was that when I was making the originals, I was looking at fabrics that were on a bolt that was 60 inches, not 45. And I kept finding things I didn't think were usable. Finally, I gave up and I went to flannel, and I also tried micro suede. Both of those worked outrageously well. However, now I cannot find those in 60-inch fabrics. And so I thought, the only answer is I'm going to have to make quarters and then have extra seaming. And I decided I don't feel like doing that, but I did find a pattern for that. This is a vintage pattern, and it's Simplicity 9802. And in fact, I used it to make my lace skirts, which you will see and I will talk about later. So I went through my patterns and I found that. And I thought, okay, so I can use that to cut these skirts. But I decided I would see what Simplicity and the other sewing companies were offering now. So I went to Joann's and I got on the Simplicity catalog. A word of advice: do not use Simplicity's website. It's really underdone. Go to a fabric store and sit down with their catalog. That is still where the action is. So I went to their catalog and I found their modern version, and it really is the same pattern, except they don't try to cut half circles anymore. It goes to an extra large waistband, but it isn't, in the skirt part, it isn't half circles. It's smaller. And I found that, and you can cut two pieces. So today I said, all right, I'm going to do it the way I used to do it. I'll take one day to wash and iron the fabric, and one day to cut out the pattern and iron it, and one day to cut out the skirts, and then one day to seam everything. Well, it didn't work that way. I washed and ironed these fabrics right away last week. So today I brought home the pattern, the 8605, and so I thought, all right, I'll cut it out. So I cut it out, and you can see some of the problems. Minerva wanted to lie on it and attack it, so she had to be locked in the bedroom. But I cut it out, and I ironed it, and then I said, well, what the heck? And so I took the constellation pattern and decided that would be a good starting place because it's dark, so mistakes might be better hidden. And I started working on cutting it. So you can see it lying there, folded selvage to selvage, and you can see the cutting out process. And as I did all this, I realized this is idiotically easy. Why was I always so nervous back in the day when I sewed? This is idiotic. I mean, look, guys, this is called It's So Easy, or Easy to Sew. I mean, I'm going with the Simplicity patterns. The name should give something away there. But not only that, not only am I going with Simplicity, I'm going for this is Simplicity, and even by Simplicity standards, it's idiotically easy. And it is. There really were only 3 pattern pieces. Also, for the pockets, usually you cut out 2 pockets and you put them in on seam. I don't do that. I cut out 1 pocket, and I just have a right-handed pocket. I never use both pockets. Don't ask me why, I just don't. I'm just saving myself time, because the thing about Simplicity, they make big pockets, and I've never found the need to have 2, because 1, believe me, I could probably put Minerva in it. So there it is. You can see me cutting it out. You can also see, since I went back to the fabric store to buy this pattern and to do my research, you can also see that I gave way and I bought another fabric. I couldn't help it. It was so adorable. It was watermelon slices. And every color in that is me. It's the pinky red, the green, and the blue, like the Copen blue. And I thought, oh, that is such a gemma set of colors. So there you are. I am working on that skirt. So the next step really is to work on my machine. I need to load up some bobbins and to make sure the machine is working smoothly. I did read through the pattern. I read through the assembly instructions. It's just embarrassing. It's so easy. So probably next weekend, I imagine a week from today at least, I will probably start assembling this skirt. So I'm doing them one at a time. Now, things to know. I always buy my fabric in sets of 2. Like instead of making one skirt, I buy fabric for 2 skirts. Why? Well, number 1, I buy my fabric on sale. So if it's on sale, you're just going to buy it, aren't you? I mean, why wait till it's not on sale? This stuff was supposed to be $10 a yard. I got it for $6 a yard. I mean, come on, guys. You're going to find a use for this. The other thing is, I know how I work out on sewing patterns. So frankly, my formula is, when in doubt, buy 3 yards. And it worked perfectly. I think I needed 2 5/8 yards. Really, 5/8. Who does that? I bought 3 yards. So yes, there's a little waste there. I'll make a pillow or something. I don't care. But it leaves you room to cut things out badly. And that's always good news. I found myself cutting on the selvage and realized in one place that it wasn't going to work. And I had to recut the piece. So yeah, little extra fabric, never a bad idea, particularly if you're out of practice. But I have to tell you, this is so easy. This is so easy. And my husband walks out. And I thought he was going to say, wow, okay, why don't you just buy it? And I'd forgotten my husband was always my cheering section when I made my own clothes back when I was a college professor. That he got very emotional about it. He loved at night. Our studies used to be across the hall in the basement of our big house in Washington. So we were across the hall from each other. And I would be in there. That was my studio. And I'd be in there sewing and cutting. And he'd be in his working. And he was just very emotional. He considered those some of the best nights of our lives, where we were just sitting companionably in our own rooms across the hall from each other working. And when I went away on a sabbatical for a grant, he cried because he said, I don't want to be in my room without you right across the hall. And I've always remembered that moment as very moving. Thank you for sharing it with me. So anyway, he came out. And there I was on the floor. And he looked at it and he said, what are you doing? And then I said, I'm making myself happy. And he looked at it and he said, that is beautiful, and it's going to be beautiful. And fortunately, I'm 62 years old. If I was 32, like I was when I made the first set of these skirts, I would have jumped off the floor, thrown him backwards onto the wood floor himself. And well, anyway, I'm 62. It takes a while to get off the floor, but anyway, he got a big kiss for that one. But it made him happy. And I thought it's funny how, harking back to our 30s, some of the happiest moments were just those little companionable, homey moments. And I can't even tell you how great I feel working on this again. So, no, I know if I say this enough, Gigi Knitmore is going to come back with a really good name for a segment on sewing. She already gave me a good one for ASL, and I can't remember it. But anyway. Meanwhile, no love on the lane splitter, but the don't know yet. Row 17 is almost completely seamed on. That's what I did this week. I got up early one morning because I just didn't sleep well. And I just came here into my study of love and I put it in my lap and I just worked on seaming it while listening to an audiobook. And it's really satisfying. The other thing is I changed the photos of it on my Ravelry page to an updated photo where it's got something like 15 rows completely assembled. And it's face up on my big sofa in the living room. And I looked at that picture of it face up on the sofa. And for the first time, I really saw it. And I want to say this is Carla, our own Quadrat, who said, we were talking about the difference between craft and art one night. And she said, here is one thing I will tell you. That is art. You can't call it craft. Because I was defending that I'm not an artist at all. I'm a crafter. And I'm very proud of that I think of craft as giving back to the world. And Carla just put her foot down and said, I don't care what you say. The don't know yet is art. And I looked at it and I have to say, it's art. I looked at it. It looks so different to me now than it did when it was in its early phase where I just have all the pieces laid out on the floor. That is the picture that is in the show notes. But it has become so much more. The other thing, I was listening to an episode from Halloween last year, and I'm saying something like, oh, I've got almost 300 blocks crocheted, and I'm in the later stages, and I thought, I can't even remember what it was like to have over 300 separate blocks here at my feet in the cardboard carton of Doomy Doom Doom. I can't even remember it. And I'm so glad I'm past that now the idea of all those loose blocks just brings me down. But no, oh, it's so great. I'm so glad I did this project. It's just been such an interesting experience. No love on the Pennsylvania Dutch embroidery or the Lady Eleanor shawl. Really, this week I've been working on the socks, and I've been really happy. That is, finishing the Frankies, doing the spring Frankies, working on the blueberry hooves. I am really controlling myself not to cast on more socks because I really do want to finish other projects. I really do want to get back to Lady Eleanor and the lane splitter. They're sitting here at my feet, and I have all my project bags piled up at my feet. It's just a little sad. And that's it. It's just a little sad that I looked at and I said, I will be so much happier when these are done, when these are really just out of the way and made into beautiful things. So there we go. My favorite resources, that's good. Dizzy Blondes, I am still spinning Minerva. This week I was looking through the pile of disaster, which is a very hidden pile of stuff behind my love seat here, between my love seat and the sliding mirror. Yet another place I thought would make good storage that now just looks terrible. And I was just going through that, looking at project bags, and I found the silk that I want to blend with the spun Minerva fur. So that's exciting. I suddenly see a future on that. So yay. Also, ASL, I got a note from my teacher. I submitted the write-up for my art project, which you may remember is a scarf made out of my hand-spun yarn. And I put in the submission a picture of myself spinning. And in that picture, I'm at Sunnybank. And I'm spinning the cauliflower. And the dog it came from is sitting on my foot in front of me. Yeah, it's true. The teacher said, isn't it cruel to just yank it, to spin with the dog sitting there? Doesn't it hurt the dog? Yeah. I did write her a personal email and said, no, you don't understand. The fur is from a previous grooming, and it was taken off her in the normal way when we groom a dog and then collected and given to me. Okay, those who do not spin, they do not understand. Let's see what we've got here. In the strategy, okay, we're working on sort of Japanese mindfulness and acceptance. And this week we have Yugen, Y-U-U, so 2 U's in a row. Yugen or Yugen. This is the beauty of the unseen. That is to say, this is a profound awareness of the beauty in the universe that cannot be expressed or explained in language. This is the ineffable. This is that feeling you get that simply isn't describable. And we all know them, and we all get them different ways. The way I felt when I looked at my newborn son's face for the first time and realized he was now on this side of my stomach and he was mine forever. The way I feel when I look out over the landscape out my study window, and it just isn't describable. The way I felt when I saw blankets the other night and I felt her and I saw her happiness. There just isn't a description for some of these things. And to be aware that this has not left us, that this continues throughout life, this, I think, is where courage comes from. I think this is what we seek for in the darkest moments. That when you feel absolutely terrible, this is why you yank out your photo albums and start looking through them, or you start looking through the images on your iPhone, or you listen to certain pieces of music. The theme music to Cognitive that I play, the Ode to Joy, that gives me Yugen. That gives me that feeling, I can't explain it, my heart leaps up in my chest. the sight of my husband when he's walking towards me, and especially when he recognizes me, when I see him look at me and realize it's me, the look he gets on his face, that's Jugend. And these are the things that we cling to. That I remember listening to someone talk about how in a school shooting, a high school teacher got shot, and one of his students crawled up to him on the floor, and she pulled out his wallet, and she started showing him the pictures of his family, because the student realized the teacher wasn't going to make it. And again, that student and that dying man both got Jugend. That's both that understanding that there are these things that bring us such comfort. And I'm using mostly images, but there's a lot more to it than that. There's memory, which may or may not be visual. There's the smell of Thanksgiving dinner. There's the same silly album of Christmas songs in Italian my dad insisted on playing every year, which to this day I regret that I do not have a copy of it. There's just so much stuff that is so ineffable. And I don't know if the Japanese would say this, but I think one of our jobs as we go through life and as we age, because as you age, things do get harder. You start losing the people around you that you loved in your youth. Things change. You have to deal with that. And I think it's our job to sort of collect these experiences of Jugend, of holding this to ourselves and using it to comfort ourselves. And again, this goes back to thought replacement, thought substitution, thought stopping in the more dialectical behavioral sense. Or if I was going to say act, I would say this goes back to cognitive fusion versus cognitive diffusion. That cognitive fusion, I'm stuck in my thoughts. If I'm upset, I stay upset. I can't stop obsessing. But cognitive diffusion is I have the ability to say this thought may be accurate, but right now it is not helping me. And cognitive diffusion, the healthy version, is you can simply change your mind. You can refocus your thinking in ways that help you. And I think this is where Jugend comes in, that sense of the ineffable, collecting these peak experiences of quintessential joy or beauty or bliss or delight. And this is how we do it, that when you're trying to get off a painful thought, you try to replace it with a beautiful, beautiful thought, that you try to replace it with one of these memories or experiences in your life that taps on the inexpressible, the ineffable. And that is Jugend. In the fluffy books, I'm now reading An Ominous Explosion, book 10 in the Beatrice Hyde Clare series. This one's very, very interesting. She's talking about steam engines, and it is interesting because reading it, you begin to think about what it would be like to be in that place in history where you're looking at the beginnings of an invention and you realize this is going to change everything. And that's a lot of what they're talking about. I think in my own lifespan, the same experience would be the internet in the 1990s when I was a college professor and I realized this was going to change the way we taught. And I started trying to do it. And what I found funny was my department just said, you're wasting your time on that internet stuff. It's never going to be big. Whereas I think a lot of us younger faculty realized the potential. And I did live to hear the, what was this guy? The dean of our group of departments say one of the biggest mistakes they ever made was letting me quit. That when I said when I said I was going to resign, one of my colleagues, God rest his soul, said, we need to tenure her right now. And it was year 3. And the chair of my department, who'd been one of my dissertation readers who I recruited, she said, no, the dean will never permit it. And so I left because I wanted to be a therapist, and I've never really regretted it. I'm so glad I'm not a college professor, to be honest. It's not really what I wanted to do with my life. But anyway, An Ominous Explosion kind of brings all that back to me. And it's an interesting moment in history where they're looking at the development of steam. And it brings together in the plot what you don't see. And I think what we didn't all see with the internet, that it's not just a matter of a personal thing, the invention of an individual, who is staking his entire life and his savings on the company that will produce his invention if he can only make it succeed. It's about the fact that these inventions also bring in larger scale groups like the military, the government, and that they are eventually recognized as changing the course of history. So I'm having fun with that book. Meanwhile, on Netflix, I'm binging Seinfeld. And again, Seinfeld is interesting. It's from the early 90s. It holds up pretty well. There's a few episodes that are a little awkward by our strictures now. But again, it's interesting. It starts out, they all have regular phones in their house, landlines. And then they all have portable phones. And so, they're talking about, will there be cell phones in one episode? It's very interesting to watch 30 years later. Okay, something I really like. Well, since I've been sewing this week, I brought out my petticoats. When I lived in Washington State, they had leggings in those days, but they were thin. They were like heavy tights. And leggings came in and then they went out. And they have since come back, which I'm really happy for. But in those days, when I was in Washington State and it would get below zero, I wanted to wear long flannel skirts, and I'll bet you can see why. And they were not enough. The nylon slips or half slips we used to wear were not enough, and the leggings were not enough. So I resorted to petticoats. I picked a good Victorian solution. And you can see me there wearing the petticoats, and this is, again, the Simplicity pattern 9802. The pattern itself is described as pull-on skirts. That is, you make an elastic waistband. So I got me some nice eyelet lace to make petticoats. And you can see it there, and I have various close-ups of it. And it's beautiful, and it's thin, but it's cotton, and it does the job. But it was very, very plain. So I went to the lace and trim area of the store, and I picked up this beautiful pink ribbon that had a little lace scalloped edging. And then I picked up some just pretty lace trim edging. And then I looked at the length of this thing, because this was a 60-inch wide fabric, I believe, or else I cut it really long. I don't remember which. But anyway, I looked at the eyelet lace, and first thing I did was I folded it. So I, about maybe 8 inches up from the bottom hem, the raw hem, or the raw edge, I simply folded it up and made like a tuck. And I sewed that. And I considered that decorative. And then I added on the ribbon with the scallopy edging, and I just top stitched that on. And then it looks like I added another layer. Oh, I did a tuck. That's right, I did a tuck, but on that tuck, I added a lace edging, again, top stitched in. And then I did another tuck and so on, and I put a lace jagged edge, like a handkerchief edge, on the bottom. This thing is beautiful, and you can see there's a picture there with me showing it off. Now, I made 2 of them. They're incredibly easy to make. This is as easy as it gets, believe me. And I wear them one on top of the other because here in California, they're kind of see-through. But when you wear one on top of the other, you get this double level skirt, and it's very pretty and very feminine. So you can see me wearing it there, and I do tend to wear it in the summer. So something I really like is lace and trim, that if you're going to do this, if you're going to make these easy skirts, and I really recommend you do, it's like making a sweater in a really high quality hand-dyed yarn, where you make a simple sweater and then you let the dyer's yarn dyeing job do all the heavy lifting. That you can make a very simple sweater in a beautiful yarn. Sweater looks couture. Well, you can do that with your sewing if you're going to make a bunch of simple skirts, and you really should try it for the summer. Just a bunch of simple skirts. In the winter, layer them up. But if you're going to do this, or layer them up with leggings, if you're going to do this, don't forget the lace and trim section of the store, that for a little extra money and just a tiny bit of extra stitching, and I mean just straight stitching, nothing hard here, you get some real bling value here. So do not forget. The other thing I would tell you, if you really want fun, when you make a flannel skirt, go and buy that lace handkerchief edging. Just attach it to the bottom of your flannel skirt at the hem. It looks like you're wearing a petticoat under it. So this is really fun stuff. You can be very creative with it. So get your lace and trim on, and that's what I like this week. In Put a Lid on It, I'm still doing the tea tastings. Oh boy. I have to tell you first, I drank a green tea. It was a lemongrass blend, and I've reviewed it before, and I don't remember it frankly, but I get high as a kite on green tea. So I drank it last Wednesday night, and then I went to class because I wanted to be awake in class. That was great. What I didn't want was to be awake at 3 a.m. that night into the next morning, but I was. So yeah, green tea, I know it's really healthy for you, but it puts me on the roof. I really react to it like it's caffeinated. But what I did put in there is one I really like. This is called Evening in the Garden, and it's an herbal. It's a rooibos, a red bush. So it's herbal with the taste of caffeine. This stuff is amazing. I really loved it. It was completely forgettable hot, but as an iced tea. It's so wonderful. And I put it in my tea diffuser in my quart jar. And if you look at the picture, you can see it in the diffuser because when it rehydrated in the hot water, you can see the rose petals and all the floral. What you taste, there's lemon with a slight rose overtone. It's got a very lemony smell with just the same hint of rose. I really like this. This needs absolutely zero sweetener as an iced tea. It carries itself beautifully without any sweetener. I did mix it with the lemon sparkling water from Trader Joe's, and that was fantastic. It just brings out that lemon and rose flavor. But I really recommend this as an iced tea. This is Evening in the Garden Herbal from Plum Deluxe. Meanwhile, low-carb Norma. She is fairly new in the low-carb scene. She was pre-diabetic, and she decided to become keto. It would be nice if she actually followed keto. She says she's keto, but some of her recipes are not low-carb, if you ask me. Are they lower carb than the average American is eating? Oh, yes, she has cut the carbs. But are they within the low-carb limits of keto? That's where I have a problem. Nonetheless, low-carb Norma is innovative, and she's really trying. So she gave 2 recipes for keto wraps, and these are great. These are very smart. So one of them is with spinach. It's just 3 eggs and spinach, a handful of spinach. So really these are egg wraps with just a touch of spinach. Blender them, in like a bullet blender. Put in whatever seasonings you like. And again, very, very thin on a very hot nonstick pan or with a lot of butter to get a crepe out of that. And then the other one she gives is a 1/4 cup of coconut flour and a tablespoon of psyllium powder, a little bit of salt, 1/2 cup of water. That makes 2 wraps. That makes sense to me. I would think both of these would work really well. Remember when you're making crepes, the secret is a really good nonstick pan, or if you're me, one heck of a lot of very hot butter in the bottom of the pan. Actually, let me correct that. Not one heck of a lot, just enough to get the pan moist with the butter so things don't stick. But there's 2 keto wrap recipes. And low-carb Norma, like I said, I'm not going to buy her diet plan. She's trying to make a buck off being keto, I think, if I remember correctly. But she is good. She does have some innovative recipes, but I don't consider her any kind of expert. But she is succeeding and she's having a good time with it. And it's really helped her blood sugar, so more power to her. In the blather, Deaf Culture class, I finished the final project a while back, and I finally submitted it. That is to say, I did the write-up, I took photos, and as I told you, my teacher now thinks that I'm ripping fur off unwilling dogs in order to spin. I did send her a private email explaining that that's not what's going on in that picture of me sitting next to the collie whose fur I was spinning at the time. Now in the picture, I do describe the picture in my project. My left hand is up in the air, clearly not connected to the dog, holding a big handful of fluff. And you can see the draft area. You can see the single ply going down to the drop spindle, which is between my knees. I've got a big smile on my face. She somehow thinks I'm injuring the dog. I'll tell you, if you don't know what it is, you don't know what it is. That's all I can say. Meanwhile, that is done. And of course, she added another project this week. Oh, God, I'm tired of this. But the pup date. Captain is now on steroids for her nose. We got almost instant improvement. It's kind of stopped. That her nose looks really good, except the very tip is still red. She's rubbing it on things, so it's having trouble healing. But we only have 1 more week of the steroid, and it does seem to be helping her, so that's been nice. The Hubs date, he's doing great. The beloved son has now finished track. And I don't know if he'll ever be eligible again. I think when he'll be 18 before it comes around again. But he had a good time. He got the Spirit Award. He got all these personal bests. He's very, very happy. We're happy too because we've been talking to him about you're a winner as long as you continue this, that you want to have a healthy lifestyle that includes some kind of hard physical activity, and you want to do this for the rest of your life. In the meantime, you may notice that it is spring, as I said last week, and there is a picture of one of our rattlesnake friends. I was driving up the road about 3/4 of a mile from our house, fortunately, and there he was, 3 feet of him stretched out on the asphalt, taking a sun bath, and all sorts of cars were just missing him. I don't know how much they saw him. I took a while, and then I realized a raven was teasing him. So I actually pulled over to the side as far as I had to get the raven to come back. And I sat, and my camera wasn't good enough to film it. It was really amazing. The raven would just go down, take a swipe at him, and then dart out of the way. And the raven played with him for about 5 minutes and then just left unharmed. The snake knew better. He did not strike at the raven. What would have happened if he had? I think what would have happened is not only would the snake have missed, but I think the raven might have had a shot at the snake's belly with his beak. And you would not want that if you were a snake, without the snake being able to bite him. And I think the raven knew that. So I think the raven was perfectly happy to see if he could attack the snake, because I'm pretty sure ravens wouldn't like snakes. They'd see them as natural enemies, particularly to a raven that's on the ground. At the same time, I think a raven might try to just drill him with his beak or grab him and pick him up. And if the raven could lift him, the snake would be pretty helpless. I don't think the snake would be able to summon enough muscle power, even with their powerful body, to strike uphill in the air as the raven was flying. But it was a fascinating thing to watch, the raven and the snake. So there he is. And I thought about it. I'll be honest. I thought about running him over. And then I thought, I must be nuts. We have squirrels and rodents all over the place right now because of all the green. So of course we're going to have rattlesnakes. So while I'm not thrilled, I find them a little scary and I worry about the dogs. Although we're going to look for a rattlesnake training, you betcha. But all the same, you have to realize this is part of the system. And so, you have to account for the fact we do need these guys. So I left him alone. He's nowhere near my house. On the calendar this weekend, Deaf Nation at the Pasadena Convention Center on May 6th. I am going to spend that night at the Sheraton attached to the convention center. It's an old friend. I've stayed there many times. And I'm going to do that, just give myself a pleasant evening of walking around Colorado and green in Pasadena, where it's beautiful at this time of year, and just enjoy window shopping and have a nice dinner and all that. More important, I'm going to take my tablet and my recorder and dictate my essay and get that assignment done as well. I'm really looking forward to that. I think that assignment's due May 9th or May 10th. So that will get another major assignment for this endless class out of my way. Meanwhile, the Very Happy Evolution of Psychotherapy Conference is in Anaheim on December 12th to 17th. I will be down there. I doubt I'll be visiting Mickey, but I will be hanging out at Downtown Disney, I hope, and seeing some friends. Minerva gets the last word. I came in and found her in the captain's chair. That is my chair that I do all my work in. And there is a picture of her there, owning the captain's chair in the brick position with her feet tucked under, looking away from me loftily. And there's another picture where yesterday I was trying to work and she just kept getting in my lap and demanding attention. I tell you, Minerva is still in command. You can see it in both of those pictures. And I'm looking a little frustrated there, holding up my tablet computer because she won't let me do anything. And I'm sitting in my beautiful lace skirt, in fact. But there we are, Minerva still in command. Remember, cats always the overlords of the home. On that happy note, I went to get a COVID shot. They refused me. They said, no, we actually don't recommend it. You had one in October. Don't get another one unless you're immune compromised. So I'm going to the Pasadena Convention Center with no COVID shot. You bet I'm nervous. I am taking masks. Please remember to be safe. On May 11th, the public health emergency is officially over, and then we'll see how it goes in the winter. But just remember, overall, we've learned to be safer in public. Be safe, wash your hands, wear your mask when you need to. Overall, use your common sense, update your shots. In the meantime, everybody stay safe, take care of each other, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye. So we have come to the end of another episode of Cognitive. Please do not use this podcast to diagnose yourself. If you think you are having a mental health problem, please contact a licensed mental health professional. Show notes for these episodes can be found at cognitivepodcast, all one word, .blogspot.com. Episodes can be found at iTunes under the name Cognitive Podcast, but also can be found posted next to the show notes on the Blogspot page. Thank you so much for listening. Everybody stay safe, take care of each other, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.